I'm Samantha Brown, professional organizer, decluttering specialist, and business coach. I created Pro Organizers Coach podcast to empower you to reach new heights in your business. I am on a mission to build a supportive sisterhood of passionate professional organizers. So whether you're a seasoned pro or you're just getting started, this podcast is for you. How would you love to not feel so icky about sales and book more clients? I have a feeling you're like, yes, tell me, how do I do that? So today, that is exactly what we're going to do. I have Miss Laura with me, and she's going to tell you a little bit about herself in just a moment. But first, I want to make sure you stay till the end, because we're not just going to help you with your messaging and talk about why thought leadership is where it's at right now to stand out in your crowded marketplace. But then we're also going to look at it from the buyer's perspective, which I think is a huge piece of information that a lot of us aren't talking about. So when her and I were talking and we decided that that's kind of where we're going to go, because this is what she teaches, I was like, yes, please. So make sure you stay till the end, because it's going to be worth it. So thank you, Miss Laura, for being on the show.
Well, thank you so much, Samantha, for having me. So my name is Laura Zavelson, and I am a corporate escapee turned serial entrepreneur and also a former professor of entrepreneurship. So I'm the creator of Business Breakthrough, which is a program that helps independent experts like organizers build programs people want to buy and then price them so they can stay in business, and then create thought leadership based messaging that really helps streamline content creation and makes marketing and sales a whole lot less icky and awkward.
I love it. That's like the, what marketing and sales less icky and awkward. Like that's what we all want to do. I love it. So yeah, can you tell me a little bit, like just kind of define for me what you mean by thought leadership?
So, thought leadership is just a way of really putting some definition around your personal brand. And it's a way that can really help you stand out in the market and also connect with your buyers, because most buyers are information driven. And today it is just harder than ever to stand out, where anybody can create buckets of content using other people's ideas with, AI. And so the thing is that thought leadership is all about you. It's about your expertise, your experience, and your unique approach. So it's the way that you do things that nobody else can copy. And the
Mm,
reason it works, the reason it's working right now is, first of all, it's highly authentic, right? Because it's about you. And I think that, some of this AI generated stuff, when it's not coming from a person. And so I think people like really appreciate authenticity today more than ever. Second of all, there's been a lot of studies that show that it works right now. So 66% of buyers say that content helps them form opinions about who they're going to buy from. And then finally, and this is just an extra added bonus, if you think about it, people are actually willing to pay more if they believe that they're working with an expert. And so really all this is about is communicating what you know and then letting people make that decision for themselves.
yeah, no, and I love a few things you said there. One is definitely the authenticity. Like for me, that is kind of the mission I've been on recently, is to help my listeners and to help the women in my group coaching community to figure out, who are you authentically? Like let's quit looking at other organizers and what we think we should be doing and all the shoulds. Forget that. You are amazing enough and you know enough just right where you are and with what you know, that if you can portray that, people are going to feel drawn to that like a magnet, because there's very few people doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that you do not need to be like a world renowned expert to be able to make this work for you. You don't have to have won any prizes or anything. What you do need is you have to be able to offer people an outcome or a transformation. So you need to be able to say, I help people get from point A to point B. And because that's what people buy, right? People don't
Mhm.
necessarily buy the fact that you come in and you do this task and that task. What they really want to buy from you is how they feel when it's done. So that's the transformation you provide. And this is just about talking about that and telling them what's going to happen for them. So you need to be able to at least have that. You have to have an outcome. And then the other thing that you need to be able to do is break down your approach. And I know that every single one of your listeners has an approach to how they go about organizing. And so, really, all this is talking about that and saying, when I come and I start working with you, I'm going to get you from point A to point B, and we're going to do step one, and then we're going to do step two, and then we're going to do step three. And when you start talking about that, that really is what's going to kind of put you in their minds as a thought leader. So, it's really as simple as that.
I love that. So I have this formula or phrase that I tell everyone, and I tell them to use it. This is what it looks like to work with me.
I love that.
And then taking them, like for us and for me specifically, every time I get on the phone, I tell a potential client, this is what it looks like to work with me. We're going to start with the consultation. And then, I'm going to come, we're going to do a session. We're going to take it one step at a time. Like I have this whole spill, right? But it's this is what it looks like to work with me because I know that specifically as an organizer, every one of us do it so differently, which is why I started doing that in the first place, is because I knew that even if they had worked with an organizer before, if I didn't set those client expectations from the very beginning, I was setting myself up for failure in the sense of they may not be happy with what I'm doing, or I've not set it up in a way that they are like, oh, she said we were going to do this. Right. And so that's huge of what you just said of helping them understand this is what it looks like to work with me. And here's the steps that I'm going to take you through.
Yeah, and you know what I love about that idea of this is what it looks like to work with me is it bakes in your differentiation from the very beginning. And people remember what's different. If you're so there is a guy in marketing, he's like one of the OGs of marketing. His name is Seth Godin. And he wrote a
Mm.
book, this is years ago now, called Purple Cow. And the whole premise of this is that when you're driving along through the countryside and somebody sees a bunch of cows on the side of the road, at least with you, if you're with my friends, someone in the car is going to go cows. And that's lovely. And everybody's like, oh yeah, cows, it's great. And then after a while, you've seen enough cows. And so people stop commenting on cows. But imagine if you were driving along and then all of a sudden you saw a purple cow on the side of the road. Oh my God, everybody in the car is going to be like, purple cow. And they're going to get out of the car and start taking selfies with the cow and sending them to people, right? People really hang on to what's different. And the cool thing is that if you can get really good at talking about why you're different and you can occupy kind of that brain space for people, they will tell their friends about you. And that is like the
Mhm.
best marketing of all.
Thank you. Hello. Word of mouth marketing is, yes, we need content. Yes, we need all the things. Like, yes, people need to be able to find us, and 1,000%. But our best marketing are the clients that are happy with what we did. They connected with us, and then now they're telling their friends and family. Like, I still to this day believe in like word to mouth, whatever marketing, whatever it's called.
No, absolutely. That referral based marketing, of people. This is another. It's kind of yucky, but this is another Seth Godin ism. He said people like he called them sneezers. There are just people in your world who like tell everybody if they found something good, if they found like, a new kind of I don't know, something at the store that's really good, or they found a sale over here. They tell all their friends they found the best restaurant in town, right? They tell everybody about it. If you can
Hmm.
be that best restaurant in town for them, they will tell everybody. And that gets that trust going. And that's one of the things that we were going to talk about, right? Was that what are the things that we need to do to get people to buy from us?
Absolutely. And we were also like, what are the things that we need to do? Like, let's just go ahead and jump on in.
Yeah, so I think that there are definitely three ways that you can use thought leadership to influence potential clients. And the reason it works is because these are the reasons people buy. So, first
Mhm.
of all, thought leadership will help them understand your service. So, people do not buy what they don't understand. Okay. So, what I was talking about before, that this is what I do, or what you were saying, right? This is what it's like to work with me, right?
Mhm.
So, you're going to help them understand exactly what's going to happen. And you can write about or talk about, because you can, thought leadership, you can do this with a podcast, you can do it with videos, you can do it with a blog, you can do it on social media. You can put your ideas out there any way you want. But one of the key things you need to do is to help them understand your service. So that's number one.
Mhm.
If they don't understand it, they're not going to buy it. Okay. Number two is they have to believe it will work for them. So as an expert that if you go in there and you follow your process, things are going to get organized, right? But the
Yes.
thing is, everybody thinks that their situation is special, right? And that's
Yes.
normal. We all want to think that we're special or our circumstances are unique. And especially if we're uncomfortable, right? And
Mhm.
that's when people hire people. It's when they're uncomfortable. So you have to help them believe that your process will work for them. And so you can write about mindset shifts, right? Because you mentioned that a lot of your organizers use coaching along with organization,
Mhm.
right? Because it's you can clean stuff up, but it takes a mindset to shift and make it stay,
Yes.
right? So you can write about mindset shifts. You can do case studies. You can show before and after. You can say, I worked with somebody just like you, right? So when people start to see themselves in what you're talking about, and that's what thought leadership does, they will believe it will work for them. Okay, so that's the second thing they have to believe. And then the third thing is they need to know, like, and trust you.
Mhm.
So this whole concept of know, like, trust came from a guy by the name of Bob Berg. He wrote this book, I don't know, 15 years ago. But he had this idea that all else being equal, people will buy from someone they know, like, and trust. So, what is a better way to get people to know, like, and trust you than telling them exactly who you are, how you work, what you're going to do for them, and what's going to happen after you're done working for them, right? So,
Mhm.
those are the three big buyer influences. And then I added one more, and it's remember. You have to help people remember you. And if you are just somebody on social media who's out there, putting up posts about, I organized this, or, here's a picture of what I did, or, here's me and my dog, that's fine, but it's going to be hard for you to stand out in their minds. And what you want to be is you want to be that purple cow. Like you want
Mhm.
to occupy a space in their brain so they remember when they have the organizing problem, because they probably, 2 to 3% of the people that you talk to have the organizing problem right now. Then
Yeah.
the rest of them are going to have the organizing problem later. And so you have to help them remember you. And the best way for them to remember you is for you to talk about your expertise, your approach, and your step-by-step method that you use to get from point A to point B. And nobody can take that away from you. That is uniquely yours.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said there because on the sense of like understanding your services, we kind of already went over that of like, making sure that people understand our services, but the believing it will work for them. I want to jump there for a minute because I think that you're exactly right. I almost always hear people tell me that I chose you because of either your messaging spoke to me, your before and after photos. When I saw the before, I realized that it's similar to what mine looks like, so I knew you had seen this before. Um, or it's the well, for me, it's like it's the faith component too. Like I have scripture on my website, and for me, that's huge. And so a lot of people will even choose me for that. But the point is, they have to connect with us somehow. And a lot of people in like organizing has been made to be this like, you know, Kardashian pantries and like, the $5,000 room and like all the stuff. And we absolutely can do that. But a lot of the people that follow me and a lot of the people that, are doing organizing the way I am, it is more about the person's mental health along with their physical health, and it's about helping them, mentally, physically, spiritually, like whatever we can do to help them become a better version of themselves so their life is more peaceful and less chaotic and they have systems in place but it's simple systems, not the, because it's not that organizing, a lot of people think everything fits all, like all of it fits, the exact same way. And it's not that. And so I think the more that we could actually even share, hey, I helped this one client go from like this, or, like for instance, I had a client recently that we realized with her, she just needed some bigger bins and she just wants to throw it in there. She does not care how it lands or if it's neatly, or like, she just needs to know which bin. If it's, then she'll throw it in. She could care less if it's folded, if it's whatever. I was like, great. We figured out what works for you. And now she's at a place where she picks something up. She's like, oh, I know where that goes. It may be a big bin and it may just get thrown in there, but for her, that works.
And
Yeah.
I think that's such a great insight in terms of showing that you're willing to help people find something that'll work for them, that you're not a one size fits all. Because I think specifically around what you do, what works for one person that's like a super organized person and is like
Hmm.
everything has to go in the same space every day versus someone who's like my son, who he sounds like this woman that you were working with. Literally, there's a bin for clean clothes and a bin for dirty clothes because he's not going to put them away. And by the
Right.
time he got to college, we were kind of like, all right, he's not going to put them away. So,
Yeah.
you have to find stuff that works for them. And I think that people forget that these case studies and testimonials and these before and after pictures, that's all a part of a thought leadership content strategy. It actually all goes together under the same umbrella.
Yeah, I love that. And so when you say case study, do you mean like if like kind of like the story I just told you with her? Would it be something like sharing that on like a blog or sharing that, or what would a case study
100%.
be?
It's,
Okay.
absolutely. It's the before and after pictures on social media. It's the before and after pictures in the caption that talks about what you just said. It's a blog post. It's a maybe you interview the person if they're willing on YouTube
Mhm.
or on the podcast, and they tell you, before I thought that I had to. I'm just going to use my son as an example. Before I thought I had to fold everything up and put it in a drawer, but I just couldn't make myself do it. And so if you can't make yourself do it, it's not going to work for you.
Mhm.
And so, if someone can come in and say, well, what if we just did this? You can absolutely change somebody's life by saying, it's okay. What if you just did this? It gets everything off the floor, out of the way, everything looks good, and everyone's happy. That's so powerful for people to think, oh, if I hire, an organizer, they're just going to make me fold stuff.
Right. And I think we forget too, and this is kind of the point that I wanted to get at earlier is we get so, especially when we're first starting our business, right? We can kind of get into our own head. We're so focused on like, starting our LLC and doing all these things that, and what content am I going to create? No, I got to get my Facebook and my website and my Google. And like we're on, so of course we're thinking about the stuff that we need to deal with. But at some point, we forget to kind of transition for the messaging part and for the before and afters and the content and all of that. We forget to swap and kind of put ourselves in the client's perspective and then look at our own stuff and kind of audit it and be like, would I buy, like, even me, would I buy from myself? Like, would I buy from this person if I came across their stuff?
That is such a great point. And I see that I've been working with early stage entrepreneurs for such a long time. And you're exactly right. It does happen. I think the act of starting a business is so overwhelming because there's
Absolutely.
it's like drinking from the fire hose, right? There's so
Mhm.
much you don't know. There's even stuff that you don't know, right?
Right.
Um, and so it's all just coming at you, and you're trying to like, it's like the whack-a-mole, right? You're just trying to keep everything even, so you can so if you do get a client, you could actually serve them, right? And I
Yes.
think the thing is that the most important thing you can do, so much more important than your logo or your website or whatever, is really understanding who you want to help, what problem do you solve, and why it matters. Like, why is the person going to buy from you? If you can understand that, if you can get there with that person, they will buy from you every single time. And it's
Yeah.
rarely about having stuff on the floor. I'm going to guess that the vast majority of clients that you work with need need your service for a lot more than just putting stuff in bins. Like
Oh,
it's a
absolutely.
bigger
Y
thing.
Yes, it is like a lot of people that reach out to me specifically, There's a couple reasons, but one of the big ones is that kind of what we were talking about earlier. They felt like every other organizer they looked at, it was all of like the stock photos and the beautiful stuff that seemed very not authentic, right? Or that it was above them. So they couldn't possibly reach out because they were going to be judged and they felt so much shame. And so for me, that's my goal is to help the women that I'm helping the ladies to start their organizing business is to help them help kind of the everyday person. Like we talk about this in the community all the time. We're almost like, hey, not your average organizers, but we're like the everyday person's kind of organizer, right? Like we take it one step at a time with sessions instead of big, huge packages. So financially, you can afford it. We also take it one step at a time so you're not overwhelmed. We prefer the stuff with clutter so we can come in and help you figure out where things need to go, what you can release. And we all are coming from a place of there's no judgment. Like we see your stuff and we see a puzzle, like we get excited to come in and like help you, and then the biggest part is when you see that client or you have a client that's like, "Oh my gosh, this changed my life." That is whenever you're like, "Okay, yes, I was called to this. This is what I'm meant to do. I am on a mission to help these women." And I think to your point of like being authentic and having a mission and like I love that you and I connected because of exactly that. Like just this year, or it was the end of last year, I was like, "All right, God, like what am I going into?" Because I finally got like my course set up that's like how to start your organizing business. Okay, you can go purchase the course. It'll take you step by step through it. I've got my coaching program. I've got my group coaching community where we meet every week and support one another. And so I have all that. But then I was like, what how am I standing out even more? Like I have the fundamentals of being a coach that helps other women start their organizing businesses, but I kept wanting to get more specialized or authentic, kind of like what we're talking about, right? And I'm like, how am I going to do that? Because I feel like, and then you go into that place of like, well, I feel like someone's already doing that. No, somebody else is doing that. So I can't do that, even though it's completely authentic to who I am. And I kept feeling God tell me, like, do what you know. And what I know is for like a year and a half before I ever even started my business, I worked on my own calling. Like, what am I called to? Who am I meant to help? Why am I why do I want to help them? And it's exactly what you just said of the knowing those things. It makes such a difference in the way that people respond to you and are willing to open up their homes to you.
100%. And I love that you did that. And, as you were talking, I was listening to the words you were using, and so many of them really connected with the emotions of the person who might be looking to buy from you. And
Mhm.
it's that emotional connection. So thought leadership isn't just about connecting with data or connecting with your process. It's really about making that emotional connection because that's actually what gets into that know, like, and trust. Like
Mhm.
that's actually how you bridge that with people is bringing the emotions into it. But you have to understand what your client is feeling. You have to understand. I mean, I thought that was just such great insight that people might not hire an organizer because they were ashamed of having someone else come
Mhm.
into their house, right? You understanding that then allows you to talk about that. And that is thought leadership, right? Talking about
Mhm.
that and saying, this is normal and we come into this all the time and we see this all the time and there's no judgment. Think about how that's going to make a client feel so much more open to working with you. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think where I get stuck, and I'm going to be totally vulnerable here, which you and I have talked about this, and the ladies in my membership know. I've been working on it, but we all fall short sometimes. So the place I fall short is I can take that and I can talk about it all day long. I know who I'm talking to, how, all the stuff. I can do all the online stuff when it comes to like Google and my website. And like, I've got all of that stuff down to a T. But where I get stuck is the social media part, and I think a lot of
Mm.
us do. Like, the second it's like, "Oh, I'm gonna put this out on social media, and I'm gonna create content around this," we just go, like And so I would love for you, like, and I'm mentioning this because I know you're going to come inside of and do our workshop for the POC group coaching community. And so I love that you kind of specialize in like not just the think about what the buyer's feeling, here's how to be a thought leader, but then how also do you turn that into content? So can you speak to that for a minute?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the thing is that once you understand that transformation, right? That point A to point B, right? That's a big picture. And then you understand the steps. We do one, then we do two, then we do three. That's how we get you there. You can write. Yeah, I use an analogy of a disco ball that it turns out that we can break our content up into little tiny mirrors, and when it spins all together, it's really impressive. But you are actually just breaking down the pieces into really small bite-sized chunks. So a lot of times we think, well, if I'm going to create content, I got to talk about the whole thing. I got to talk about
Hmm.
everything that I do. And then I'm going to talk about the steps. And then what else am I going to talk about? But you can go into every single step, right? And you can talk about how it works, why it works, who else has it worked for, how your approach is different, your mistakes that get made around this step, this is what people are afraid of around this step, this is exactly how you do this step, here are my assessments, here's the tools I use. So you're not giving them the assessment and the tools, you're saying this is how I approach an assessment and this is why, and this is who it's worked for in the past, and every single one of those little pieces can be a piece of content for you. And so you can do it at the high level, your whole program. You can do it about each little step in your program. And you could actually even break it down to around each individual assessment or tool that you use. You can literally have a never ending like volcano of content if you take just a handful of prompts that really keep going back to those things we talked about before. Why do people make buying decisions? They understand what your offer is, they believe it will work for them, and they know, like, and trust you.
Absolutely. And I think it's kind of like with anything. Like we're like, oh, couple things happen. One, we could get on social media to create content before you know it, you're scrolling and it's 5 days later and you don't know what happened. Or the other piece is that you go and you sit down to create the content, but then like you get a text or like something else happens, or like we get so distracted by stuff. And that's actually why I think last month it was that we did a co-working session in the membership, because I'm like, okay, let's get together, let's figure out how we can like help each other do this stuff. But what I love about the workshop that you're going to do and the freebie, which we're going to tell people about in just a second, but what I love about the idea of the workshop is, like you were saying, you do interactive workshops. And I think that that is huge because it's like, hey, you're inside of this group coaching community. You know, every Tuesday from 6 to 7 Eastern Standard Time, we meet. And so it's already an hour that they have set aside to be focused. Okay, well, during this focus, now let's figure out and get you some content to where the second you sit down, like you know exactly what you're creating. And I've tried to do that in the past for them or help them figure out how, but I get so stuck in my own head,
Uh, you
which is
know, I
horrible.
I totally understand. And I'll be honest, as I've been working through kind of thinking about how to do this and obviously how to help other people do it. Cause you always, if you're going to teach something, you got to figure out how to do it for yourself first. And then you can tell everybody else how
Yes.
you did it. But I have these things that I call minis. And I literally take my content, if I've written an article or if I've done a YouTube on it, and I will break it down into like the smallest part of that. And I will shoot 30 seconds of a reel, and then, basically in the caption, I more or less restate what I said in the reel. And at
Mm,
least that gets me out there with a consistency. And I know that I'm always talking about these key, a lot of people call them pillars, whatever you want to call them, your key categories, right? But all your key categories have to be is this is my transformation, these are my steps. And actually that can be your whole pillars is your transformation and your steps. And then I would say there's one more piece that I think can be super helpful to kind of supercharge the whole thing on social media. And that would be I call them selfies, but I don't mean a selfie like taking a picture of yourself. I mean talking about yourself. So talking about your values. You and I were talking about this a little bit before we started taping, right? Which
Mhm.
is how important it is to share who you are with the people who are going to buy from you, because again, that goes back to that emotional connection. And so you have to be willing to talk about, if you have a mission behind what you do, the values that are behind you do. If you want to talk about your family and kids and pets, fine. If you don't, fine. You can have boundaries. But
Mhm.
really letting people a little bit know about who you are and why you got into the business, that can go so far to really complementing a thought leadership strategy.
Yeah, and actually I've seen that a lot. A lot of this I've done by, just like figuring it out, spending time with God, spending time by myself, trying to, like all the stuff. But it wasn't like I ever had like, oh, this is my strategy, this is how I'm going to do it. I just kind of figured it out as I went. And that's why I love like coaching and what you and I do, is because it's like, hey, what took me 5 years, I can help you do in a couple hours.
Honestly, that's exactly why I was drawn to it. As especially when I was teaching, entrepreneurship at the university level, I had all this knowledge, and I was like, wow, it took me so long to acquire all this knowledge. How can I share it with people to help women be able to start and be successful in their businesses faster?
Yes, absolutely. And it matters because in the day and age we live in right now, especially as women, it's not like we, have a ton of extra time. Half of us are juggling 10 different plates at the same time. And so having someone that can kind of like link arms with you and be like, hey, let me walk with you and help show you these things, is massive, which is why I'm so grateful you're coming into the membership because I love coaching, and I love what I do, and I love that they support one another. Absolutely. But I also love that I can bring in other people that are experts in their area of expertise and kind of give us a different perspective that maybe I've not thought about, or maybe I didn't teach it that way, or, and so I think there's a lot of, I love community, I guess, is, even community between like, other coaches and other people that are kind of doing a similar thing. It's not competition, it's community. Like I want to support other women that are doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, and that is the greatest thing I've found about women entrepreneurs, is that the level of collaboration is incredible. And I did not necessarily see that when I was working in you know, working with a lot more men, frankly.
Oh
You
yeah.
don't see it the same way. Again, there's a lot higher level of competition. And when you start working with women and you really start focusing on helping women, the willingness of women to help each other, to give each other a hand up, to collaborate, is just so much greater. And it just feels good because everybody can win.
Yes, yes, because then it helps all of us. It's not, oh,
Yeah,
it's me or you. It's both of us. Okay, here we
exactly.
go. Yeah, no, I love it. Okay, so tell them a little bit about the freebie, and then I know like whenever you come do the workshop, it's going to kind of be essentially based around like what the freebie is. And then also I want to make sure that they know we'll put the links in the show notes, so that's where you go to get the freebie.
Awesome. So, look, if you have listened to this and you're interested in building out a thought leadership program, so whether you want to do it on a blog or a podcast or YouTube, or you just, you want to put stuff out there on social media that's, kind of organized and coherent, I have got a package of prompts for you that's going to help you generate just a ton of content ideas really quickly. And as Samantha said, you can grab that in the show notes.
Yay, I love it. Or you can come join the group coaching community before she comes in. And then, which should be probably like April-ish, maybe May. We haven't decided on the exact date yet. But if you're listening to this, it's definitely before she's come in. So just come join us. And then that way you can get taught by her exactly how to use it. And we always do a Q&A inside of the group coaching community, which is my favorite part of bringing in experts, is when we get to do the Q&A, because then I get to see like what kind of questions do the members have. And it also helps the person that's, doing the guest speaking or workshop that day to get some feedback as well, which is always invaluable in what we do.
100%. And as I always say, as a former professor, professors love questions. We love it when people ask
Yeah.
us stuff.
That's so funny. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you. And then tell everyone real quick, what's your website that they can go to find out all the stuff about you?
Thank you so much. And it has been such a pleasure to be here. So my website is laurazavelson.com, and I'm going to spell that for you. Laura, Z as in zebra, A, V as in victory, ELSON, laurazavelson.com. And you can find some other freebies on that site. And if you'd like to, you're always welcome to book a free 20-minute call with me. There's a big button on the site. There are no strings attached, no sales, unless you specifically ask me to sell you something. I just like to help people. I think it's such a big deal to help women be successful and to offer women that financial freedom of working for themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you will find the link to her website in the show notes as well. And if there's anything that you loved about this, maybe leave a comment about it and tell us what your favorite part was or the best thing that you learned, because I love hearing from the comments and what people are learning about what we're doing. So thank you so much, Laura. And for those of you listening, we will catch you in the next episode. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Pro Organizers Coach podcast. Go to proorganizerscoach.com to find all the ways that we can help you succeed in your business. Remember, you have the power to make a difference in people's lives through decluttering and organization. So keep honing your skills, embracing those challenges, and fostering connections. Girl, you've got this.